Hey y'all, Rob here with atx.legal, here with part 6 of the Assault Family Violence Guide for 2023. And in this section, I'm going to be talking about the FVIP program, Family Violence Intervention Program, as well as the Pretrial Diversion Program. They're very similar. The FVIP program is for misdemeanors. Pretrial diversion involves felonies. Now these are good programs because they do allow you to get the case dismissed and eventually expunged and off your record. It does not involve a family violence finding, and in general is just a good way to move forward and put the case behind you. Now there are some requirements, and we will talk about that you would have to complete before the case is dismissed, but in general this is a very good way to handle these cases and move on with your life. Now the FVIP program in misdemeanor court has replaced what used to be the deferred prosecution, and the deferred pros, as we called it, was a little bit better in certain ways and a little worse in others. One thing the FVIP program changed that's just not quite as good as that deferred pros is that before the case would actually be dismissed right away. So with a deferred pros, you sign the agreement, you turn it over to the prosecutor, they dismiss the case that day, and then if you violate the program later, then they would bring it back. Now with the FVIP program, they leave that case pending, so it does remain on your criminal history as a pending case until the completion of the FVIP program when it is dismissed. Now, very importantly, it does not require an admission of guilt, and that's the positive change from the deferred pros. With the deferred pros, you did have to admit guilt in most cases. The FVIP program lasts 6 to 12 months, and during that time, you need to complete counseling classes, and very important that you receive no new charges, especially no new family violence charges. If you do receive a new family violence charge, this prosecution is going to be reopened and you're going to be facing 2 cases at once. Now, one thing to note about the Family Violence Intervention Program is that if you complete the classes early, they're going to dismiss that case early. So it's always a good idea to get those classes done as soon as you can, and especially here because they're going to dismiss that case once you're done. And of course, because the case is dismissed, there is no family violence finding to worry about, and you can get it expunged from your record. Now, the analog to the FVIP program in district court is going to be the Pretrial Diversion Program for felonies. And the Pretrial Diversion Program, it's very similar. It lasts about 12 months. You're not going to be released early, and there's going to be some additional requirements, such as checking in with a probation officer every month and paying those supervision fees, which is about $65 a month. In addition to that, the Pretrial Diversion Program does tailor it sometimes. The prosecutor can add on requirements, and that can be whatever the prosecutor decides to add, so it can be more onerous than the misdemeanor program, but we're talking about felonies here where the potential punishments are a lot more severe as well. So it makes sense that the Pretrial Diversion Program would be a little bit more difficult than the misdemeanor version. The classes you're taking in the Pretrial Diversion Program are usually 36 weeks and can go up to 52 weeks. So a little bit more again than the FVIP program, and you're typically not going to be released early from the Pretrial Diversion Program. The bottom line is either of these programs, the FVIP or the Pretrial Diversion, is usually a very good way to handle the case. If it does get offered in the case, I usually recommend my clients take it. And the big reason why is that you're avoiding the stress of putting it on a trial date. You're avoiding also all that time it takes to get it on a trial date and wait for trial. Even if the evidence is somewhat lacking and maybe you would win at trial, a lot of times it's still better to take the FVIP or the Pretrial Diversion Program because it cuts out a lot of that stress in your life. None of this has been legal advice, but if you do want legal advice on your particular case, you can visit us at atx.legal.